Amidst planning and working on other videos, and amidst my scramble to see the few movies that I've missed before the Oscars, I've recently watched two of this year's Oscar-nominated movies that have absolutely blown me away by their ability to live up to the buzz that's been generated around them for months. The first was The Worst Person in the World, which I already made a video about, and you can watch it by clicking the banner that's up in the corner right now. And the other is Drive My Car, which is nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Adapted Screenplay, Best International Feature from Japan, Best Director, and Best Picture. And it's what this video is about. These two films are great examples of the Oscars' relevance, because they're incredible international features that I may not have heard of, let alone watched, apart from their awards buzz. And now they're in the running for some of my favorite movies of the 2020s so far. It's a nice little reminder that, hey, the Oscars do play a good role sometimes, even if they completely shut out Mass, Pig, The Humans, The French Dispatch, Annette, Come On, Come On. Anyway, Drive My Car absolutely blew me away, and I'm so glad I got the chance to see it ahead of awards night. This is a 3-hour drama that, on its face, could seem boring or dull, but if it grabs your attention from the very beginning like it did mine, then you're in for a deep and introspective ride. It's a film about art and stories and the way they can affect our lives deeply. It's about the ways we relate to people and how we both understand them and don't understand them. It's about the metaphorical masks we wear to maintain the status quo and the comfortable lives we've grown accustomed to. It's a poignant, haunting, and uplifting story about grief. It's about the lies we tell to others and to ourselves to alleviate the never-ending stream of little griefs and regrets that come at us every moment of every day. It's about letting yourself be human, and moving forward with the knowledge of the complexities that being human brings. And these ideas are all communicated through a fairly simple story. The plot centers around a man named Yusuke. He's an actor and theater director, and his wife Odo is a television screenwriter. They support each other's artistic endeavors. Odo tells Yusuke the stories she comes up with, and he helps her hone and remember them. They seem to have a good relationship. That is, until Odo introduces Yusuke to one of the actors she works with, who Yusuke later walks in on in bed with his wife. But instead of making a scene, which would be a totally rational and understandable reaction, Yusuke quietly leaves the house and pretends as though he didn't see what he saw. Sometime later, as he's leaving for work for the day, Odo says she has something to tell Yusuke when he gets back, and Yusuke, not wanting to lose the happiness, comfort, and contentment of his current life, drives around a bit longer than usual before coming home. But when he arrives at home, he finds Odo on the ground, dead from a sudden brain hemorrhage. If you're worried this is all too spoiler-filled, I promise you it's not. After all this happens, there is still just under 2.5 hours of movie left. It's all even in the HBO Max synopsis. This roughly 40-minute prologue is objectively long, but that doesn't mean it's boring or that it drags. Much to the contrary, in fact. The film is masterfully paced so you don't lose interest. Director Ryosuke Hamaguchi frames most of his shots quite objectively. There's nothing flashy going on with the cinematography, but that's not at all to say it's not effective. For instance, a central thematic question of the film is about whether we can truly know someone, whether it's possible to be completely open to someone else, and to have them be completely open to you. The main relationship this is explored through is between Yusuke and Odo. The reason neither of these characters end up confronting each other about the infidelity is that they're so ingrained in their life that they've been living. Maybe Odo isn't faithful, but it doesn't seem to bother Yusuke to the extent of anger, visible heartbreak, or the loss of love. But at the same time, he does become visibly detached, even if it's only to a minor extent. But Hamaguchi and cinematographer Hidetoshi Shinomiya often frame Odo with a mirror the couple has in their entryway, along with other glass surfaces for her to reflect off of. It's an effective way to introduce the ideas that'll come up later in the film, about people leading double lives, and there always being more to a person that you're never going to see. There's always something deeper. There's always another layer that's hidden, or an extension of a person that's for them and only for them. This small section isn't the only part of the movie that worked in a layered way, because as the title would suggest, we spend a lot of time with Yusuke in the car, which is where he, as an actor, learns his lines. He spends time sitting and driving and reciting his lines along with a tape recording of the other characters in the play, day after day, and it's not long before you start noticing parallels between what's being said on screen and what's going on in Yusuke's life. Early on, he discusses not being himself, hiding who he is in place of speaking his mind, and letting his true self emerge. Yusuke recites lines from the play about regret and life passing him by, while probably thinking the same thoughts deep down, beneath the surface. But he never lets them come up. Confronting those ideas would be too difficult, too painful. It would expose that life isn't as amazing as he would like to think it is. At least, not in the ways he makes it out to be. But the repeated car rides and rehearsals that Yusuke has slowly hammer in the ideas that the play is communicating. They get deeper and deeper into his psyche, and very slowly chisel away at the walls he has put up. Hearing the dialogue over and over just makes its meaning slowly seep into his soul, and by extension, into the soul of the viewer as well. This is where the 3-hour runtime really works to the film's benefit. Each scene means an immense amount, and works to break down your defenses the way it breaks down the characters. And thanks to the objective framing, your eyes aren't necessarily drawn to flashy visuals. While the film is shot beautifully and is full of visual meaning, its matter-of-fact nature allows you to just take in the beautiful, lyrical, rhythmic dialogue about life, love, and loss. And for the characters, especially Yusuke, this is all happening through art. When Yusuke goes to Hiroshima to direct a new production of Uncle Vanya, he talks about why he can no longer play the role. Unknowingly, he's admitting that the role is too deep, personal, and relatable to him for him to be able to perform it night after night without accessing something real about himself that he doesn't want to access. Because encountering the art, what it's saying, and what it means is scary. It has frightening implications for his life. But that doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't be encountered. Like lots of films that the Academy tends to recognize, this is a story that's partially about the power of stories, and it is unashamedly so. Because through showing us how a story affects this one man, this story is in turn affecting us. Now from here on out, I'll be discussing full spoilers, and want to give this warning since this is still a fairly new movie. If you haven't seen it, I strongly urge you to do so, and then come back and watch the rest of this video. Eventually, Yusuke is forced to take the role of Uncle Vanya back on, and in doing so, he has to encounter the words that the play is saying. He has to process them, think about them, and yield himself up to them, as he puts it to Koshi. Because thanks to his conversations with Misaki, he's gained a new perspective on life, grief, and anger, and he realizes that it's good to let these things in and let them change him naturally. And after Yuna delivers the final lines of the movie, talking about grief turning to beauty, the shot changes from the long, static close-up of the actors performing the play to a wide shot of the crowd, letting us know that these words are for us as well, and not just for Yusuke. So I've talked plenty about how the specific work of art of Uncle Vanya has a profound impact on Yusuke, but while its themes are quite specific to the situation that he's in, and not all the characters had the same reaction to the text that he had, the themes of Drive My Car can be much more broadly applied in life. This movie is about a lot of things, but at its core, it's about moving on from grief and guilt. When Yusuke arrives in Hiroshima to direct the play, he's assigned a driver for liability purposes, even though his car functions largely as a sanctuary, where he learns his lines and has such important time to himself. But in a more metaphorical sense, the car represents his life and the walls that he puts up. He says he's had it for over 15 years, but other than its style looking out of date, you'd never be able to tell that it was that old. It's in pristine condition. Aesthetically, there's nothing wrong because he tends to it. Just like his life. With both his car and his life, he works extra hard to ensure that they look good and feel good. He doesn't want to move on to something that's potentially new or better. Specifically with his life, he knows that he's being cheated on, but he doesn't let it outwardly affect him. He just lets it fester. He doesn't address it because he believes his wife still loves him. He puts off any sort of confrontation because he knows that'll just lead to throwing off this happy, complacent life he's built. And that's why his happiness and the pristine car are all just a facade. They block the true hurt that he has underneath. Even after his wife passes, he puts on a brave face and acts like he's fine, like everything's okay. Like he doesn't have massive grief, hurt, anger, and guilt to work through. Grief because his wife of over 20 years is gone. Hurt because she was cheating on him with many different people and acted like everything was fine. Anger because she basically lied to him for an unknown length of time, and guilt because he knew he could have done more. He could have been more present. He could have asked more questions. As he puts it, he should have been hurt properly because he let something genuine slip by. Instead of burying everything under the rug to preserve the pretense of a happy life, he should have addressed it head on. The outcome of addressing this could be any number of things, but it's the principle of addressing it that would have been worth it. Because Yusuke just has massive moments of regret. He regrets not confronting his wife, and he regrets not coming home early enough the night she died. And he regrets a million little moments before, after, and in between. Thus, he doesn't want to reveal anything about himself to anyone. And the same thing can be said of Misaki, his driver. They're pretty much a perfect pairing for two characters. They're basically emotionless robots who drive back and forth listening to his tape every day. There's no real benefit in that. Misaki, as we find out after a long time of her being amenable to just about every one of Yusuke's requests, no matter the time of day, no matter the circumstance, is hiding deep hurt as well. She's introduced and we notice a large scar on her cheek. But we don't know what it's from until about 2 hours later in movie time. It turns out that she got it in the mudslide that killed her mother, with whom she had a complicated relationship at best. Her mother was abusive, but was all she had in life. Misaki was told that plastic surgery could largely cover up her scar, but she has as much trouble moving on from something that hurt her as Yusuke does, and she has the same regrets of not standing up for herself, and even not saving her mother, the way Yusuke regrets not coming home earlier to save his wife. These two spend the majority of the movie delivering their lines woodenly, the same way Yusuke instructs his actors. They wear it in different expressions throughout the movie, until they start breaking down those barriers that they've each had built up. It's not until the very end, after nearly 3 hours of breaking down the walls that have been put up, that these two characters finally accept that the people in their lives were who they were, regardless of how the people around them acted. They had to learn to accept themselves for who they are, and therefore accept others for who they are. And once they do this, they're able to show affection, to let themselves feel, to reveal their regrets, hurt, and guilt, to desire connection. One of the stories that Odo came up with was about a girl who had a secret, but keeps leaving bigger and bigger clues for people to find that secret out. But the people around her never acknowledge it. probably because acknowledging it would be too uncomfortable for all involved. Drive My Car is about acknowledging the secrets. It says that it's better to ask the questions we're too afraid to ask. It's better to accept others for who they are as people and to do the same for ourselves. It's better to say the things we don't want to say. Leaving these things alone just bottles up too much inside us, and it will become too much to handle. Being hurt is an essential part of life. It's genuine, even if it's unappealing. But isn't genuineness what we strive for? Isn't it what we should strive for? It's the pinnacle of human experience, to allow yourself to be genuine. Not only to other people, but much more importantly, to yourself as well. After the final performance in which Yusuke finally allows himself to feel the effects of the words he's saying, sometime into the future we find Misaki in what is presumably present day. Now, she has a car to herself. She's no longer driving it for Yusuke, which means he's been able to move on. The car's engine is even squealing a bit as she turns it on, showing that the facade of keeping the car perfect and pristine isn't really needed anymore. It even looks like Misaki's gotten the surgery to cover up her scar. It signals a readiness to move on for both of them. They no longer have to hide behind all these layers of feeling. They can allow themselves to be on the outside, who they are on the inside. Even with the constant regrets, the constant guilt, griefs, angers, and difficulties, we will be lighter if we allow ourselves to move on. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're immediately going to be happy and prosperous, but we'll be better on the inside as people. Misaki still drives the old, small car amidst a sea of modern, more expensive ones, but at least she now has a car of her own. It's progress. Along with the dog and covering the scar, she's moved forward. And though we don't see the specifics, Yusuke has presumably moved on as well. Drive My Car is about the lies we tell ourselves, and others, to make life seem easier, but those are only temporary fixes. We need to recognize what life is. We need to allow ourselves to encounter the things that will affect us, that will shake us to our core, that will open up new truths about ourselves. We need to let ourselves suffer, cry, and say life is hard. Because it is, but that doesn't mean that there isn't good to be found too. We need to remember each and every one of these beautiful lessons that the film teaches. We must keep on living. It'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be okay.